Civilizations often hide their darkest truths behind walls of stone and gold. We look at ancient Egypt today and see monuments, gods, pharaohs, and wonder. We see beauty carved into temples, light reflecting off hieroglyphs, stories of divine love and eternal life. But what if behind those same walls, behind those hymns and rituals, lived another Egypt, one built not on glory but on silence? A world where power wore the mask of holiness, and faith became a tool sharper than any blade. Imagine a temple so grand it rivaled the palaces of kings. Its pillars touched the sky, its courtyards glowed beneath the desert sun. Outsiders saw harmony, devotion, perfection. But inside, far from the eyes of the world, the most vulnerable paid a price no one dared speak of. Young girls offered not by choice, but by desperation, debt, and conquest. Children renamed, reshaped, and erased in the name of gods who never spoke. History remembers the pharaohs. It remembers their crowns, their battles, their tombs. But the truth buried beneath Karnak's stones tells another story, one more fragile, more painful, and far more human. This is the story of those forgotten voices, the temple virgins who endured something worse than death. In the heat of 1200 BC, the great courtyard of Karnak shimmered beneath a merciless sun. The air carried the scent of incense mixed with ancient dust, stone that had absorbed centuries of prayers. On the polished floor knelt a girl named Nefertari. She was young, barely old enough to fully grasp fear, yet terror shook through her as 3 priests circled her with bronze razors gleaming like tiny suns. Every slow scrape sent strands of her black hair drifting to the ground like fallen feathers. The sound was soft, almost gentle, but the moment felt like something dying. Her father watched from behind a pillar, telling himself this was honor, not sacrifice. The priests called it purification. But the temple did not bless children. It consumed them. Behind the colossal columns and the painted divine symbols, something older than any god moved, an appetite for power masked as holiness. To understand what awaited Nefertari, you must understand the world that claimed her. Egyptian temples were not sanctuaries. They were empires with their own laws, wealth, and armies. They owned land, controlled grains, collected taxes, demanded tribute, and punished debt with ruthless precision. And when a man could not repay, they did not take his property, they took his daughter. Girls were labeled wives of the god, though nothing in their lives was divine. Their names vanished, replaced with numbers in papyrus records. Temples sparkled with gold on the outside. Inside, they echoed with silence, tears, and discipline carved into flesh. No child entered voluntarily. 3 paths led to the same prison. Debt, a daughter traded for forgiveness. Devotion, parents desperate for divine favor. Conquest, captured children brought as tribute. Nefertari was one. Mutamuya, a Nubian girl taken during famine, was another. Before service, priests stripped away identity. The girls' clothes, their hair, their names, their past. They were reborn, not in purity, but in ownership. Days began before sunrise. Rows of bald, silent girls knelt while overseers read from the Book of Purity. Speak only when commanded. Avoid eye contact. Desire nothing. Be silent always. Obedience equals holiness. Emotion equals impurity. Girls wove endless linens, ground grain, tended sacred fires. The songs they once sang became thin whispers praising false peace. Yet resistance found a way. Some wove hidden messages into cloth, tiny crooked stitches meaning. I see. I resist. I remember. Every month the temple staged its holiest ceremony, claiming it renewed Egypt's life. Incense clouds thickened. Gold shimmered. Girls were dressed in white linen, painted as offerings. But this ritual stole the last thing they owned, their innocence. Nefertari's turn came at 14. The high priest, masked, shadowed, claimed the gods spoke through him. But Nefertari understood the truth the moment his hand touched her. No god stood in that chamber. Only a man abusing the power of silence. Mutamuya experienced the same fate. When girls became pregnant, they were hidden. Their children were taken and raised by the temple. The cycle repeated endlessly. Nefertari's daughter was taken at 3. Their eyes met only once. After that, Nefertari never sang again. One woman, Renutma, broke the silence. During a meal she stood and declared, "These men are not gods. They feed on our bodies and call it holiness. There is no God in these walls, only men who fear truth." For this, she was left in the desert to die. Her final words, secretly recorded by the aging priestess Tayet, survived. The gods took nothing. Only men did. Women carved messages into pillars. I existed. I was born free. I remembers. Mutamuya scratched her mother's name into pottery before death. Tayet buried testimonies beneath temple stones. Centuries later, archaeologists unearthed fragments. The lost voices of women the world tried to erase. Today, tourists wander Karnak admiring beauty, unaware of the shadows beneath. They hear stories of gods and kings, but not of daughters lost to silence. Empires build monuments, but the earth preserves truth. The gods may be silent, but the women are not. If you listen closely, you can still hear them whisper.